Welcome to the Empower Hour, guys. I'm your host, Maile Scarpino, and I'm here with Devin Nogaki. He is a trainer here on the island. He is also certified in nutrition. And this is going to be an awesome episode because I don't know anything about Devin. So I'm going to get to learn a lot too and hear all about him. So Devin, tell us who you are.
My name is Devin Nogaki, originally from New Jersey, Bergenfield, New Jersey, but Hawaii is my home now. I've been here for off and on for about 15 years, and I own and operate what I call a healing and fitness business or service, ranging from injury rehabilitation to stress management to peak athletic performance.
Okay, that's interesting.
Oh,
So when you say peak athletic performance, what kind of athletes are you working with?
Some consistently marathoners,
Okay.
Endurance athletes. They have they need a lot of ongoing maintenance.
They do.
Yeah.
Shin splints, feet injuries, stuff like that?
You name it, up and down the lower extremities and even sometimes into the neck and shoulders.
Oh.
But yeah, do a lot of work on endurance athletes' legs for sure. Similar to going to the dentist, where you brush your teeth every day.
Right.
So the analogy would be you stretch every day and you run, but every 6 months or so you go to the dentist and you get that deep cleaning.
So you do that?
Yeah. So a runner would come to me, for example, for deep cleaning of their joints and muscles, and I'll also provide nutritional advice if that's a department of their program that needs work.
So what does a deep cleaning constitute as? Is it massage or is it?
That's a great question.
Okay.
It'll start with an assessment.
Okay.
I'll assess, first of all, their goal.
Right, because that's important.
Yeah, the psychology of what they're doing.
Yeah.
Where they're trying to get to.
And it actually, let's get into that later, too.
Okay.
That would be interesting to hear your thoughts on that.
So get an idea of their goal and their injury history, their movement ability. I'll do a structural assessment.
And what's a structural assessment?
Structural assessment is if you look at the body and we have lots of joints.
Right.
So each joint is one structure.
Okay.
And so you put all these structures together, and now you have the whole system.
Okay.
So these links are the structures. So a structural assessment will go in and I'll test range of motion at each level.
Aha.
And the
So
range
it's
of
kind
motion
of-
is tested specific for a runner.
Is it looking at their gait and stuff?
And then also looking at their gait
Okay.
on a functional level, movement assessment as well. Yeah. So I'll do a structural and movement assessment. And then if they come in and they have IT band syndrome, for example, we want to explore what's driving that IT band syndrome. And my approach is I like to think of the word holistic.
Okay.
And that word kind of gets thrown around.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
what's your definition of holistic?
Well, the holistic mentality is the individual who seeks all authentic and natural means at reaching a goal or healing themselves.
Okay.
And that could range, right, depending on who you're talking to. So that's the way I approach things. A holistic approach.
So no pills.
And the most holistic, well, there's a role for that, and of course they have to follow medical advice.
Right.
If they're always follow your medical care advice.
Follow your doctor, it's very important.
But to also bring my card to him so we can have a conversation about what you're trying to achieve. So I forget where I was, but so holistic. Holistic, right. So if that's the mentality, which I promote, and why not? Because you're going to learn more that way.
In what way are you going to learn more? Explain that.
If you have knee pain,
Yeah.
and the solution is to wrap it and restrict the joint in order to avoid discomfort or pain or create stability. That I would call that an artificial source of stability.
Okay.
The holistic perspective would go, all right, let's look at this knee. The knee has two bones, right? The femur and the tibia.
Right.
You go, all right, so we have these two bones, and then let's follow the femur up. Where does that go? And now we're up in the hip joint. And you look at the hip joint. So you go, okay, this bone that makes up the knee, these two bones, actually is the hip and the foot. And so you have to explore the function of the hip and the foot in order to create a strategy to healing your knee.
I like that. Looking at like the whole entire thing rather than just looking at the knee and speculating that it's the knee specifically when it's not.
Exactly.
When other mechanisms do contribute.
So take holistic and break it down into three main parts.
Okay.
You have a symptom.
Symptom.
You have a compensation.
Compensation.
And then you have a driver or a cause.
Okay.
And those are the three things that I look for.
So can you explain those to us? Like, what is a symptom?
So the IT band syndrome would be that person's symptom.
Okay.
You go, I have this pain, and I went to the doctor, and he said I have IT band syndrome. You know, that's the symptom. Or a headache.
Okay.
You know, or my neck hurts.
Got it. And
or
then,
I'm overweight would be a symptom
and
as
then
well.
the second one is?
Compensation.
Okay.
Would be
how you're compensating for it, what you're doing to try to avoid that pain or that symptom.
Yeah.
And then the third one is?
The third one is the cause or the driver.
Okay, so what's causing the symptom? Yeah?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Because the symptom, when you have a symptom, you have to realize that it's most, and then 90% of injuries are chronic. They're from repetitive stresses. It's from the things we habitually do, day in and day out. And so you're on this path for a while before that symptom hits, especially in endurance athletes.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, it seems like all of a sudden, it just started.
But it's been there for a while.
Well, it's been in the making.
Okay.
And so anytime you have what I call a dysfunction through the movement system or through all these links, these structures that are supposed to work as a whole. Yeah. When we run, there's this spring going on, right? And there's forces traveling through.
Mm-hmm.
And the more flow you create through the links, the more efficient and the healthier your joints will be.
Ooh.
So if I watch somebody run and I do a movement assessment, I'm observing the symmetry, I'm observing the flow, I'm observing the position, listening to their feet. You might hear.
So they're putting more weight on one side?
Yeah, so a lot of observation. And then that leads me to finding the compensations, and that leads me to finding the causes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so do you mostly just work with long distance runners, or?
The majority of my clients are just regular people.
That's cool.
Non-athletes. Yeah. And I find it's a special treat for me to work with athletes when I get clients or athletes, because I like, the striving towards performance. I was an athlete as well.
What did you do?
Wrestling was my main sport.
Oh, you're kind of big to be a wrestler, aren't you?
Wrestlers come in all shapes and sizes, but I think typically, I think wrestlers are usually
a little bit
shorter.
Or I shouldn't stereotype like that.
Actually, some of the best wrestlers I went up against were taller than me. I think they had this sort of this length advantage.
I guess.
Like a spider. Like Anderson Silva, right? He's tall and he wraps his limbs around his opponents. And so, so that was my main sport, was wrestling. And I played football, baseball, golf.
Okay. So you're all over the board.
In fact, I work with a lot of golfers.
What do you see in golfers that's really common?
Oh, boy.
Because you think of golfing as like a low impact sport. Like you don't really think of a lot of injuries, but I guess a lot of things are repetitive.
You know what's funny is golfers complain of pain a lot when they're not swinging. It's like, I have back pain, and I'm like, so tell me a little bit more, when do you feel it? And they're like, when I bend over to pick the ball up out of the hole. And so,
Do you think
all
that's
right,
because,
well, that's interesting.
Do you think it's because they're maybe not, I mean, you look at golfers and golfers aren't really, oh, this is bad, they're not the most athletic population if you compare them to like a football player or something like that. Do you think that's partially why they may have like a low pain tolerance, or they're just not in as great of shape as they could be, or do you think it's actually something going on?
Serious golfers, they tend to just golf. They usually, I mean, I don't want to stereotype, but
No, I have a friend who's a
lot of them
professional
don't
golfer, and yeah.
work out.
Yeah.
You know, they're not like the fitness enthusiast type.
Right.
They love golf, and they'll study golf and they'll watch it. So what winds up happening is, because our body is adaptive, it will take the shape and form of what we're doing over time.
Okay.
If your movement patterns are very repetitive, and I'll always come back to this because it's this repetitive thing that's really driving, you know, sort of the joint problems in a lot of athletes. So golfers do the same movement over and over, essentially.
Swing.
They may have a slight change in body position depending on the club they're using, but the swing is the swing, and the movement is, not only is it one like this on the backswing, but it's the same on the follow through.
So what does that mean?
So it's very, very repetitive.
Okay.
You know, and so any imbalances that they have through the entire, anywhere, could be in the ankles, could be in the neck, could be anywhere in the body. There's an imbalance and compensation's going on, and they're doing it over and over, and imbalance gets worse and worse.
And it just progressively will.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they come and see you.
Right. Yeah, hopefully.
Hopefully. I can relate to that because I know playing volleyball and hitting so many times, I'm little, but in Hawaii you can be an outside hitter at a smaller height, and I'd hit repetitively over and over again, and I ended up fracturing my back, my L5 and my L4. So I was out for a while, but so I completely understand that kind of thing where you just wear through and suddenly it's like, oh my gosh, I came out of nowhere.
And did you notice, were there any preliminary signs leading up to that?
Yeah, I had a lot of muscular pain in my lower back, and my legs would get tight. And my dad, being a doctor, an orthopedic, he's a back doctor, and he was like, I should have known that this was coming. And he was really disappointed in himself for not seeing it or not pulling me out. But when you're trying to get to the collegiate level and you're young, you just kind of keep going.
We tend to think that youth athletes are indestructible.
Yeah.
And it's more and more common now that the bodies are breaking down at an earlier age.
Yeah.
So.
Because it is a lot more practice these days.
Oh yeah.
If you want to make it.
More repetition.
Yes.
Yeah. Less variation.
Yes.
In training.
Completely. Even at the collegiate level, like we pass probably thousands and thousands of times in the practice because you need to get that touch just perfect if you want to be consistent enough.
Ask your dad this.
Okay.
I'd love to ask him myself, but he's not here. So you relay.
Okay.
From what I've learned, the neuromusculoskeletal system, as it's developing, by a certain age, about 18, it sort of settles into itself. It's kind of like it hits this, I don't want to say permanence, but sort of it is what it is, and you carry that the rest of your life.
Okay.
And in Europe, they promote a very strategic form of training, combination of swimming, gymnastics, and track and field for the kids, because they understand this principle of adaptation. So when a child's body is developing, and you're playing one sport your whole life,
right?
In our country, we go, yeah, that's good because you'll be really good. Tiger Woods, you know, all these examples of people who have excelled and changed the sport and done really well. And you look at what they did, and so parents want to do this the same. That's part of. Well,
because we have this mindset that if there's a plan, you stick to it, and that's always going to work.
And that'll work for you.
Right.
Yeah. But you want to be careful because if you're doing this repetitive motion over and over and over, it starts to settle into the way the child's body is developing, and that's going to carry through
and they'll have
the rest of their
imbalances.
life, right? So there'll be more challenges for that child moving into adulthood on a physical level.
So in Europe, they promote a broader spectrum of things for them to do. I mean, because
swimming,
you're using different muscle
track
groups.
and field, and what's the third one?
Gymnastics.
Yeah.
Because I know for swimming is a great recovery. It's low impact.
Yeah. Decompressive.
Yeah, I mean, we would definitely have pull days. I hated pull days. I always thought I was going to drown.
Oh, really?
But some girls on my team couldn't. They were like from Iowa or places where there's no ocean, so they didn't even know how to swim. So it was pretty interesting. Yeah.
Lifeguard.
Yeah, that happened definitely a couple times. But so what do you do? Like, what's your favorite way to sweat or work out or?
I've come to the point where the best way to describe my workouts is 80% of my personal workouts. Now, the way I got into this was my personal journey of injuries.
Oh.
And illnesses, quite frankly. When I was 8 years old, I had several life-threatening asthma attacks. By the time I graduated high school, I'd had 2 orthopedic surgeries.
Oh my.
My knee and my lower back.
Okay.
And in between that, I had scoliosis. So I had, mild curvature of the spine, which factored into kind of everything.
Yeah.
So by the time I was 18, 19, I was already feeling 70, 80.
Right, you're feeling old.
Breaking down.
Yeah.
And but I was an athlete, and so there was a huge part of my day missing. This go work out and go blow it up.
Because you couldn't.
And feel good. And so I started searching for solutions. That was the start. I started going to Maverick style learning seminars on the weekend with highly specialized strength coaches.
What is that, Maverick style learning?
Just not taking any information, always questioning it. How does that work? I wanted answers. I wanted to know what I could do to heal and work out again, because I couldn't. After my back surgery, not only physically, I know after bad injuries, the physical body has to heal, then also the mental has to heal. And so when the body gets injured, there's an inward pattern. So it tightens and it moves in. Yeah, you don't see anyone get hurt and go, yay, I'm injured, right? It's like, oh my God, this hurts.
Right.
And then on a mental level, it's, oh my God, if I go work out, will it make it worse?
We're going to take a short commercial break, but I want to hear more about the mental level, especially because I'm in psychology. And
Okay.
So I'm like, ooh. I'm your host, Maile Scarpino. This is the Empower Hour, and I am here with Devin Nogaki.
Nogaki.
He told me to remember it by saying Nogaki, but I can't break it down like that, but I just did. But anyways, we'll see you in a couple minutes. Thanks.
Aloha, my name is Paul Jackson, better known as PJ, and my local interest is in sports. I have my own sports radio show at KWAI AM 1080 that you can stream live. I also have my own website, pjsportsradio.com. We have live guests in studio, and we talk about discussions and topics that everyone wants to know locally here on the islands. We cover everything from surfing to basketball to whatever's going on locally, sports-wise. We try to do our best and cover the topics in depth as much as we can. Once again, thank you for joining PJ here on Hawaii Sports Update. Mahalo.
Thank you. If
Welcome back to the Empower Hour, guys. I'm your
Excuse me.
host, Maile Scarpino. We're having fun in here right now. Jay's talking about doing push-ups in the back. That'd be cool to see. I'm here with Devin Nogaki. He's a trainer and nutritionist. Learning more about him right now. It's really interesting. He's gonna dive into his psychological experience after he got injured, because I know that's something a lot of athletes have trouble with after. You see that a lot with ACL tears, and actually, usually, once you get one ACL tear, you usually come back and you get another one or even another one after that. It's very common. So, tell us.
Was there a question in there?
Yeah, psychology. You're going to tell us about your psychology,
Well,
your mental state after injury.
After the injury?
Yeah.
So, I was in college, and I was always the strong, silent type.
Okay.
So
Even though you're from New Jersey.
Yeah.
That makes no sense.
Yeah, I didn't complain too much. I just tried to push through.
Okay, I got you.
I think that's pretty common.
Yeah.
A lot of people, you don't want to just complain about it.
No.
Like, oh, no, I have pain, blah, blah. So I just kind of pushed through, and I remember I got a job at a physical therapy clinic.
Okay.
Because I was on this search now. And as an athlete, I chose kinesiology as my focus of study.
Like many athletes do, yeah.
And so I was like, cool, I'll work in physical therapy, and I worked as an aide. And I got to basically be in an environment where there's a lot of other people who have a lot of physical
Injuries.
pain, and do the ice, and I learned exercises. That was like my intro into, basic corrective exercises in
Okay.
a traditional physical therapy setting. And I worked there for a while, and then I decided I wanted to move up into training, personal training. And my oldest brother was training at the time, and he invited me to come with him to a seminar in New York.
Okay.
And the title of the seminar was Leg Training.
Oh.
I was like, all right, that's good, because at that point, I had no legs anymore. You can imagine.
Atrophy.
After a lumbar surgery.
Yeah, there's no way.
Can't run, no squatting, so it's like, oh, that would be good. And I was truly inspired by this workshop. And one of the things, when I realized I had a geek side to me, I never would have acknowledged, admitted, or thought of myself, but it hit me. The strength coach, his name was Charles Pollock, and he's very well known. He's the Canadian strength coach.
Okay.
And he started using terms that I was learning at Rutgers University, Cook College, Rutgers University.
You went to Rutgers?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Poor me.
Big rival of Hofstra's, Rutgers.
Oh, really?
Yeah, anyways.
Oh, well, you guys always used to come down to our school
Yeah.
for the fun, so I guess you owe us one.
I guess.
So I'm studying there, and it was fun. He was using words that I was learning about.
Right, and then it's applicable, and you're
And
like,
then I was
wow,
like,
this
oh,
is cool,
this is-
it's real life.
Yeah, I could actually use this somehow. So it became real, and I got more focused on learning the physiology and the systems. Since then, I've had many mentors that I've been able to collect methods and philosophies and techniques and training programs, nutritional philosophies across
Broad spectrum.
broad spectrum. That was just the start. So, and then I'm still on that journey.
I think
That's
we
it.
all are kind of,
Yeah.
for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Because things keep evolving and changing. But you just mentioned like nutritional philosophy. What's your nutritional philosophy right now?
Here's my nutrition philosophy. This is one of those questions, because
It's hard.
I believe that there's no one diet. There's no one diet. There's no perfect way to eat. Everybody has to explore what works for them today and next week, or a few months from now, and then be ready to adapt based on what's happening in their life. So it becomes an instinctive training process, and that's what I teach. I teach my clients to develop a very clear communication style with themselves that will tell them what they need to eat.
How do you do that?
So, it's an awareness training process, and I use lots of different tools of feedback from the body
Okay.
in order to measure the amount of energy they're making. For example, if you're eating good foods and it's a good match for you, your digestion will be unnoticeable.
So what does unnoticeable means? Like no noises, no discomfort?
Right. Gas, bloating, pain. You won't have those things.
Okay.
And so, someone might say, I'm going to try this diet. I'll say, okay, great. Pay attention. Because don't come back and say, is it good? You tell me. And here's how you're going to assess yourself while you go through this this nutritional change, basically. And I'll tell you, the biggest challenge in nutrition is the mental process of going through a change. And I think a lot of times people get so unhealthy that they feel like they have two choices. I'm either going to just the heck with it. I'm going to eat whatever because it's too hard
Right.
to like follow a diet.
Right.
Or they go too aggressive
And then they fail.
and they fail. And so, it's popular, the
Trend.
term, the
Yo-yo diet.
the yo-yo effect. So I try to teach people to just come completely out of that world. Like, all right, that way, just thinking about it that way is not going to help really anybody trying to make that difficult decision. And so, I think it's important to listen to your body, to hear what your body's saying, and so you can hear what it needs.
So when you're listening to your body, is it like you're listening to your cravings you're having, or
That's one.
you're listening, like for a hunger cue, how do you, a lot of my research in undergrad was autonomy promotion between mothers and their children, how to teach children to, were mothers allowing their children to make food choices that the child then could use later on in life, rather than saying, as a mom, like, here, this is what you get on your plate, or no, you can't eat that, you have to eat this first. Do you think, like, what do you think about that?
I love it.
Yeah?
I mean, so I have 2 daughters.
We were talking about that earlier. Both his daughters go to Ilani. Yeah, that's where I went. So that they're gonna be daughters of Ilani because they're in kindergarten, right? One of them is.
My oldest is in
Your
kindergarten.
oldest one is in kindergarten. How old is she?
6.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's so cute.
Yeah, and it's interesting to watch my daughters grow up and to see how they instinctively select food.
Because they do. Little kids know like what they want. They'll eat the amount that they want, and then they're supposed to like run off, play, come back, eat a little bit. Run off, play.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and we tend to, in our culture, we tend to make them sit.
And eat.
Sit and eat.
Portions that are way too big.
Too big.
Or restrict them from eating things that they do want to eat. And then that kind of creates like a binge type of mentality that when mom and dad aren't here, or when I get a hold of this, I'm going to eat it all. Yeah.
But it's a tough process, and it's challenging to teach instinctiveness, but at least you're challenging them to get out of the doctrine of nutrition, which is influenced by
social media,
food industries.
Well, they want to keep
medicine.
you in that yo-yo diet.
Yeah.
That's how they make money.
Right. So yeah, that's my take on nutrition.
So then, like, is that, like, you obviously practice that?
Yeah.
And so can you, like, give us, I know you said to follow, like, what works best for you, but, like, what is your daily meal plan, or what does that look like?
So for adults, one of the first things that I encourage is looking at the proteins we're eating. Okay. Because protein sources are the foundation of the structures of the body.
Your amino
and the
acids.
body's metabolism.
Is that right?
The thyroid and all your lean mass. And so that's this foundation. If you're building a building,
you want a strong foundation.
Yeah. First thing, let's make sure it's going to stay up, and then we'll make the walls pretty after that. Make the foundation strong. And so we look at protein. I could go on and on. I'll just give you one.
No, talk about it.
This starting
I want to hear about it.
Is if you look at, all right, first of all, you have vegetable protein.
Right.
And then you have animal protein.
Right. Which
is better is a whole discussion in itself.
Which one do you think is better?
I believe
animal.
That you have to eat animal protein. That's what I believe. Now there are vegetarian approaches that seem to work for some people. And that's great. I'll never try to convince someone not to, because there's different reasons why they might be eating that way. However,
I can say from my own experience being a raw vegan for a while, I was tired a lot, and it was because I wasn't, and I'm anemic to begin with, so I'm iron deficient. So yeah, not having that source of protein, the animal protein, really weighed heavy on me. And then now getting into bodybuilding and having animal meats in my diet a lot, it's changed what I can do and the muscle I've been able to build and stuff like that.
So it's enabled you to.
It's helped me a lot. Yeah.
And your energy is.
My energy is way higher.
Yeah. Yeah, it's huge, and it's said that you can get the protein you need from, combinations of.
Like beans and rice.
Yeah, but actually you can't. If you look at it.
Ooh.
You actually can't. So you look at animal protein, and break it up into 3 categories.
Okay.
All right. If you take a cow, and you break it down, you have muscle meat.
Okay. So these are leaner cuts.
Well, just breaking down the creature.
Okay.
So you have muscle meat.
Okay.
And then you have organ meat.
Okay.
And then you have joint.
Cartilage.
Cartilage. Now, a long time ago, we ate the whole thing.
And that aided in digestion, right?
It aided in a lot of things, and most of all, balanced the protein. In our culture, we have a dominance of meat. And that's why we're told not to eat it. Mm-hmm. It's actually not that bad if you balance it out across the 3 sources.
Okay.
So if you eat a 5-ounce steak and you're 40 years old and you don't work out, and you don't have any real high demand for regeneration and regrowing, your body will look at that meat and it'll say, wow, there's a lot of growth protein in here. It's a high inflammatory protein, and it will say, we only need 1.5 ounces of that. And
so it will only utilize that?
It'll utilize what it needs
and store the rest
to maintain,
as fat.
and it'll convert the rest to sugar.
To sugar?
Yeah. So protein will break down and can be converted into sugar.
Okay.
And then the sugar may turn into fat. So you're looking at a 3-step process that's very inefficient. Each step takes energy, right? So if you eat meat and you feel like, you need to take a nap,
usually do.
chances are it's not fully converting into energy. And in addition to that, you don't need to eat that much. Yeah. Now, if you find that, what you want to do is you want to make broth. Buy bones, chicken feet, oxtail, any kind of,
I'm sorry, that sounds disgusting.
Well, grandma used to make soup, right? Put the carcass in the pot, fill it up with water, put all your seasoning in there, and cook it for a whole day.
I guess.
And then the family would eat soup every night. That's the traditional eating. Everybody ate soup a lot. So we were getting these proteins. So these are the proteins that live in the joints, that replenish the joint and the collagen, that allows for the dissociation of bones and also for the impact, the ability to absorb impact. And when that breaks down, you can't absorb that impact anymore. Okay, so that's the second type of protein from the animal. And the third is organ meat. Organ meat was also considered a very precious source of protein a long time ago. Liver, intestine, brain. Okay, I don't eat brain, but
I'm over here like, oh my god.
I haven't found a smart enough brain.
It makes sense to me. Like, I've read all about this, and it makes complete sense. It's just like, of course, I've never done it, so it's foreign. It's a foreign idea.
Yeah. It's different because you're right. It's not part of what we're used to.
No.
So a lot of times I'll suggest eating liver, and it'll be like, ooh, like, that's yucky. And I grew up eating liver, like once or twice a month.
Especially because liver is like for detox, right? It pulls out a lot of the gross things in your body. You cycle through things through your liver.
Through your liver, yeah.
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 So then how is that a beneficial organ to eat?
It's amazingly high in B vitamins, for example. So you're getting high doses of vitamins that you need in large amounts. And that's why you don't have to eat it all the time. And if you can't eat it, then you're looking at a multivitamin or some kind of supplementation.
I'm going to cut you off there really quickly. We're going to go to a commercial. I'm Maile Scarpino, your host. I am here with Devin, and we will be back very shortly.
Aloha, my name is Josh Green. I host a show called Healthcare in Hawaii here on ThinkTech. We get together once a week or sometimes twice a month. Depends. When we're busy, we get together less often, but we love to see you here to talk about the preeminent healthcare issues in our state. Our programs vary very widely. We talk about economics, we talk about healthcare, we talk about social issues on this program. Thanks for joining us.
Welcome back to the Empower Hour, guys. I'm your host, Maile Scarpino. I'm here with Devin Nogaki. Did I say it right this time?
Nogaki.
Nogaki. I took Japanese too. Watashi wa mimi-san desu na to wa nan desu ka? But apparently I cannot pronounce his last name correctly. Anyways, Devin, we were talking about protein. You want to continue on that field? We were talking about organs. Eating organs.
Yeah, eating organs. Maybe we should move to another topic.
Another topic. So you're talking about, where were we before that? We talked about protein. Oh, I was talking about your diet and like what you eat, and then you said a foundation is protein.
Yeah, and one of the things to look at is, since I've become a father, these are very things right in the forefront of my mind.
Right.
How does children's nutrition differ from adults?
How does it?
So children are growing, right?
Yeah.
So they're going to need more
protein. Okay.
And going back to the instinctive observation, what I've observed is, if I put some food out, let my kids eat whatever, they'll tend to eat fat and carb.
Ooh.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, and I'm in my mind, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Hormones and energy.
It's the fastest way that our body knows how to. Yeah.
And then every once in a while, you'll see them chow down on protein, like they'll eat 2 bowls of.
Because their body's
of the
craving
protein.
it.
And so they're instinctively eating that, and they're getting what they need. And there's no twisting their arm behind their back to eat this much protein this many times a day, like we're often taught to do, like in the nutrition world.
We are. I am in bodybuilding.
Yeah.
And I get really sick of it.
So, so if we learn from kids, maybe one thing we can learn is to try to follow our instincts and not worry too much about being highly regimented. So
what happens when somebody comes to you and goes, oh, my body's craving a piece of pizza or a whole box of donuts? Does that ever happen to you?
Yeah.
And then what do you say to that?
We'll analyze it.
Because usually when people are craving sweets, it's really their body craving something else, right?
Yeah. So if that person has like chronic low blood sugar, and I'll know that going into working with them.
How will you know that? You take blood samples? And
just through health history and symptom surveys. And they may know that. They may have had blood sugar tests done if it was bad enough to have to check that out.
Okay.
And our society, basically, we have a chronic low blood sugar problem.
Ooh.
Yeah, low blood sugar
I didn't
problem.
know that.
It started when we turned into protein crazy people.
Freaks.
Yeah, protein.
The paleo diet.
We drink whey protein after a diet. We drink protein in the morning thinking that that's the one solution to building muscle and keeping our mass up.
I wanted to ask you this. Yeah. I know I jump all over the place. But how much protein do you think our body really utilizes?
I tend to use the 1.5 grams
for every pound
of lean mass. I tend to start with that.
Okay.
Yeah. But some people are more efficient than others, so again, it's a process of just learning more about what someone needs.
Okay.
So protein, very, very, very important. And if you want to talk about carbohydrates, we could go there too.
Let's talk about carbohydrates. Macros, macronutrients.
Yeah, highly controversial topic, right?
It is, because you have people, low carb diets good? Are they not? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you think?
No.
No.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, first of all, the brain by itself requires about 600 calories a day of sugar.
Okay, glucose.
Glucose. So right off the bat, if you're not eating that, you're compensated. You know,
Okay.
talk about physical compensations, and now we're talking about physiological compensations. So you're storing energy in your liver and muscles in the form of glycogen, and you only have so much. And so if your daily energy needs aren't being met, then you're tapping into your own resources.
You tap into muscle, right?
Muscle and liver.
Okay. Oh, wait,
The liver's a huge factor in blood sugar balance.
You tap into your liver?
The glycogen stores.
In your liver.
In your
Okay.
liver.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you're in that cycle, then you're in a tough cycle. You're in a high stress state a lot of the time, and that's not where you want to be.
Where do you want to be?
You want to be in a level of eustress, which is healthy stress.
Okay.
Yeah, it's called eustress. You familiar with that term?
Because you're the only person that causes your stress? Is that what it is?
EU stress.
Oh, I don't know what
It
that
means
is.
positive stress.
Okay.
So you have de-stress, which is too much stress, where things start breaking down, or maybe you're not eating enough, or you're eating very bad, and it's very stressful on your body. And then you have eustress, which is a healthy amount of stress.
Okay.
And so if you're eating well, if you're getting enough fuel, that's a good form of stress in the body. It's like working out at the appropriate intensity level.
Okay.
You know, that's a healthy amount of stress.
Right.
You overdo it, now you're placing too much
You're fatigued
stress.
and you're breaking
And
down.
that's one of the biggest problems and challenges. I think you had asked me earlier, like looking at moving forward.
Yeah.
How do we help shape the fitness community?
Yes.
And if you don't mind me jumping.
No, let's do it.
In my experience, so I've been training for, I hate to think about how old I am, but so 16 years. And count the years. And there tend to be two, if you could make it real simple and break people up into two categories, you'd say there's people who are sedentary and don't move enough.
Right.
And there's people who are out there who are moving too much training too hard, not ready, and not ready.
And what happens when you're moving too much?
So if you're moving too much, it would be like if you're physically a Pinto, like the car, you know, little, not put together, too strong, because you haven't used
those
these
muscles
joints in a while. And you go to the gym and you're training real hard, which a lot of athletes tend to do if they were athletic and they knew a certain training intensity and they get out of shape and they come back. And then it's like, I was just doing the same old stuff and, you know, I hurt my back. And it changes the course of their training in a big way, right?
I never thought about that. Yeah, that's
so
really
it's
true.
like, it happens a lot. So they'd be in the too much category.
Okay.
So their body's like a Pinto and they're putting a Corvette engine inside. And they're going from first gear to fifth gear in 30 seconds.
And they're not ready to do that.
And so, maybe the first time, you know, your car makes it. And maybe the second, and maybe the third time the door falls off or your engine falls out, right? And so that's the big challenge. And that's happening all over the place. In the boot camps and, you know, these large
see
group
it a
fitness.
lot,
Yeah.
Where you don't get that one-on-one help too. You don't get that one-on-one training or supervision, or you don't feel like you can stand up and say, hey, I can't do this, because you're in a group setting. Yeah.
So when I moved back to Hawaii, I was thinking about this, and I was thinking carefully, and I thought, okay, how can I, you know, how can I create a program that's group? Because there's a lot of benefits and advantages to group training. But how can I make it so that doesn't happen? You know, so people can come back from injury, come back from not being in shape. And I created the Zen Run Method.
What's that?
And Zen Run was part of my healing process.
Okay.
When I was in LA, I did.
And there's your logo right there.
Yeah,
Zen Run Method.
there it is.
Woo!
So I studied meditation.
Ooh.
And I've always been interested in, you know, Eastern philosophies. The name of my business is Kaizen Personal Training. When I was about 22, 21, I moved to Hawaii, and I opened my business, and I needed a name. You know, I didn't have a name, and so I had this book that I was reading. I was just like enthralled by, and I don't remember the name. I think it was called The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, something.
Oh.
Okay, so it was about this lawyer. It was about this lawyer who, you know, worked himself to death and had a heart attack in the courtroom, and had this revelation that he needed massive change. And so he sold all his valuables, and he like moved to India and became, you know, a monk.
I need to read this book.
And then he comes back home, and he shares his knowledge and his the absorption, things he absorbed out there.
Wow.
And he looks like a different person. And so now it's his new life. So it's called The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. I think that was the title. And in that book, he talked about the word Kaizen.
And what does Kaizen mean?
So Kaizen is it's a Zen term that it basically means constant and never-ending improvement.
Okay.
But the bigger meaning is if you have a goal that seems unattainable. So I like to think of a big mountain that you don't think you can climb to the top, or you're not ready for it, but you want to do it.
Okay.
Kaizen says break it down
into steps.
Into steps. Put high attention into the phase you're in. Focus, focus, focus.
And just charge through.
When you're done at that phase, you're reflecting back on the experience, and then you're strategizing for the next phase. And so Kaizen says the next thing you know, you're half up the mountain. You know, and you're not thinking about this overwhelming goal. So I really like that.
I love that.
I was inspired just by that word, and so I named my company Kaizen Personal Training.
Awesome.
And the Zen Run Method. I started Zen Run Method a year ago. It's a group training class. It's for anybody. But it's especially designed to increase awareness of the body, but to also challenge the cardiovascular system, and to also challenge flexibility.
And that prevents injury.
And so it's injury prevention, wound into fitness, you know, wound into, I teach breathing technique.
Ooh.
And breathing awareness.
Because as Americans, we're horrible at that.
And tying it into stretching. And it's very simple. You know, I want to be able to have a group class that everyone feels like the coach is in my ear, you know, for the whole session.
Yeah.
And not like, am I doing this right? Like, kind of thing.
So they know you're there supporting, yep.
Yeah, and I think that's the true development, the true way to have self-development as part of fitness. I want those two things to come together.
I love that.
And that's why I started Zen Run Method. And that, in fact, was one of the ways that I healed my back. Was this Zen was my running style, my running technique. So, Tuesdays, 9 a.m.
Tuesdays,
Park,
9 a.m. Really?
Be there.
Dude, I may come. I may have to be there.
Yeah.
Anyways, Devin,
Very exciting.
we're closing out the show.
Oh.
Wow. We talked through it.
That was fast.
I know. I learned a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll have to have you again.
All right.
And then we can get more into
I'd love to come back.
other stuff.
Yeah,
Let's do it.
it's fun.
Okay, I'm your host, Maile Scarpino. Thanks for watching the Empower Hour. Oh, I got tongue-tied there. And thanks to Devin Nogaki. I got it this time. Yes. For coming on the show. Have a good one, guys. Bye.